Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Inman InStudio. I'm Lauren Walker. I'm Director of Strategy at Inman. And today we are talking about something that affects pretty much everybody in this industry, and that is the idea of a brand. And that is something that has really changed over the years, has a lot of people saying a lot of different things. And so we wanted to get to the bottom of it. We wanted to get an expert in with us to talk about branding, especially in a digital era, which is what we are in. And so that's why we are really excited to welcome John Crabb, your CFO of Agent Image. Welcome, John. I'm really glad you're here.
Hey, how's it going? Glad to be
Good.
here.
Yeah, no, we're really glad you're here because this is a topic we see a lot of discussion about in our Facebook groups. We have a
Mhm.
lot of content on inman.com around branding. And so this
Yep.
is a chance for us to kind of get down to brass tacks about branding and a digital presence. That's something that we put in the title of this, that I want to kind of understand what agents, brokers, broker owners need to think about when they're thinking about their brand and their digital presence.
It's so encompassing nowadays because even 20 years ago when we started, you basically had just kind of websites becoming a thing at all. And beyond that, if you look at this history overall and how fast tech's moved in the last 5, 10 years, your digital brand carries across so many platforms. It could be, it literally is everything from website, newsletter, social media platforms, other third-party sources, review sites, things that sort. There's so many levels at which it carries that it's just paramount that you have consistency among them.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. I think that, what's interesting to me is even 10 years ago, there was the discussion of, do you need a website? That it was kind of a nice to have just 10 years ago, but now it's a must have. It's like, if you're going to compete, you are competing online. There's really no question. So let's step back a little bit and talk about, just even from the beginning, what should an agent think about when she's thinking about a brand? I mean, how does she even approach it?
It's first and foremost your brand, visibility and identity, right? So everybody thinks logo first thing, which is actually true. I would say for an agent starting out, whether you've been in the business, however long you've been in there, you need a very easily identifiable logo. Something that's, think Chanel, Louis Vuitton, Coca-Cola, Mercedes, whatever it is. Be that a symbol, be that initials cleanly done. However you develop and design your brand, you want to have that solidified as much as possible, as early in your career as possible, and as front facing as possible in every single medium. Because no matter what your marketing materials, I always tell people, I don't care if it's a shopping cart ad, if it's a billboard, listing presentation, your social media platforms, everything, it needs to be instantly identifiable by your logo and by your brand. That's just first and foremost kind of a 101 thing. It has to be. And if you've got a break in that anywhere, if that's not readily identifiable, that's where marketing dollars is kind of going down the drain if that's not done right from square one.
Sure. And so when they're thinking about that logo or that icon or a type treatment, what should they think about? I mean, I guess it's kind of like, what business are you in, right? Like, what are you trying to sell? Are you in luxury? Are you in urban environment? What are some other things that folks should think about when they're looking to develop that brand?
What's intriguing about that is, and I always kind of tell the clients I work with, the agents I work with, this: you never know where your career is going to take you.
Mm,
So to create a logo that's kind of catered towards even in a certain area. I had a client the other day who was getting logos done by somebody and had palm trees and a house in the background and kind of silhouette in the logo. And I was like, that's great as long as you're in Palm Springs, for instance. But what if your business takes you elsewhere 5, 10 years from now? What if that business takes you into another market, into another, could be a second home market, something like that? All of a sudden, that logo may not apply. So it's one of those things where you really need to think big picture on it, because you don't know that logo needs to be sort of not, that design, that brand should be very, like I said, it shouldn't be kind of pigeonhole you to a certain area or anything
yeah.
like that. It really needs to be broad reaching and identifiable. Again, I'm a big fan either of symbols or initials and things like that, but it has to be very professional. And it's really intriguing when you think about it, because a logo, this is not a place to skimp. This is not a place you go find somebody on Fiverr to throw out some logos for you and hope it turns out well. You can
Agreed.
be doing that, which is true, but at the same time, you take it very seriously, because that image, however that logo looks, as polished as it looks, is as polished as you look. And it's such a huge part. It's such a, not an afterthought, but it seems like such a basic thing, but it literally becomes your identity, for forever. We did one for the Altman brothers, and that thing's plastered all over Robertson right now, front and center, on a corner of a major thoroughfare near the Ivy and everything up in LA here. And, that logo is their brand.
Sure.
Something like that, you never know where that brand takes you, and what medium it might apply to, and what areas it might apply to.
That's really interesting that you should think about, will your logo scale, with your business?
Very well said.
Which,
Yes.
and actually it kind of brings to mind another issue that I've seen, that some agents will develop this beautiful logo mark that has their full name and their, all their information, but then they squish it all the way down on their business card.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't quite work. So, growth, scale as far as your business, and scale as far as where you're putting that logo matters, right?
Yes, and what the logo looks like, it shouldn't be too convoluted. Simple. I'm a big fan of simplicity. Something that can look good at whatever size you run it at. Little nuances too. Some people like, running metallic logos. Well, that's going to show up 5 different ways on 5 different print items that you do.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes, good luck in finding consistency on that gold you might like, because you don't control what mediums necessarily that gets printed in certain publications and stuff. So there's little even nuances like that you need to think about, like, how is my logo going to play, color-wise, design-wise, everything on different mediums, different marketing materials.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point, to think about how it's going to be executed, at what size, on what material,
Yep.
and if it's even going to grow with you, as your
Yeah.
business grows. All right. So
Yeah.
once
And,
the agent
and
gets
if it does, go on.
I was saying, once they have their logo,
Mm-hmm.
that's just the beginning, right? Now you spin it into other elements. Like, do they put it everywhere? I mean, is there overkill in the world of logos? Is that a possible thing?
I suppose maybe there could be, but I've done tastefully. I've never seen that happen. I think it's important, as everywhere we even do. I mean, from a website or digital marketing standpoint, be that newsletters or websites, whatnot, even running those as watermarks in the background. Even sites we do, if you do mouse overs on certain properties and stuff, we often run a ghost image of a logo on there, because the more you can have it there passively, sort of ingrained in somebody as they, through repetition, right? Because repetition is everything. With brand awareness, with brand recognition, how many places can it be seen? How many places can you get in front without it obviously being, too audacious, too in their face? But you want it to be present, because it is your brand. If you're whatever marketing, whatever medium that is, odds are you're paying for that medium to be marketing and stuff. You need to be most bang for your buck, and brand awareness is a big part of it.
That's absolutely right. All right. So now they've got their logo, and they're going to put it on a website.
Uh-huh.
And so, and if you go into our coast to coast or agent to agent or broker to broker group, so many conversations about websites.
Yes.
So there's a lot of misinformation out there. And so you guys are really uniquely positioned to provide some insights. So what would you say to agents to think about as they get started developing a web presence?
With this too, the difference I think in what I try and do is I believe there is, it's what you said, I believe there's a lot of either lack of information or misinformation that is out there. I think it's just, sort of educating and helping the agents and people understand, the first thing when you look to get a website, the first thing you should ask any company you work with, get us or whoever, is, do I own my website? That's honestly a really important thing.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, wouldn't you just automatically own it if you're paying for it?
No, in doing this 20 years, the biggest business models we see in this industry are very vendor focused versus agent focused. That's how I like to look at it. And I'll give you an example why this matters. There are things you would assume you would own a website, right? Or you'd own what you purchased.
Sure.
But it's kind of like most and a lot of companies out there run on a sort of a licensing model, as if you would kind of like Salesforce or Contactually or any CRM systems. Those are kind of good examples. Those are places where you're going to license the software, because you're not going to go out and develop it. You wouldn't think that you own those things. Those are kind of standard reason you're going to be licensing a product that someone's developed. A website isn't that, but a lot of companies out there will do it to where they try and be sort of a jack of all trades, master of none, where you've got, we provide CRM, we provide IDX, we provide a website. And there's a lot of reasons why that scenario doesn't work. One, you need to have sort of best in class for every product. In other words, your website's a part of it, but there is IDX integration. There are CRMs you probably already use if you're an agent that you want to integrate with your website. You don't want to be sort of forced into a box of like, here's what you're going to use, here's everything that runs your whole business. No, that's not, it doesn't really work that way. And it's the bigger problem is SEO. What if you have your website and you build it over 5, 10, 15 years, and you could conceivably easily sink tens of thousands of dollars into just a website alone and marketing for it. And say you end up on page 1 of Google, and you come up on a very competitive term that you've achieved. Almost the bulk of the sites in this industry are, I won't say template-based, but they are. It's template-based in sort of a self-contained model where you couldn't take that website with you. So say that company goes out of business, or the support changes, or they get rolled up into another company, which there's, M&A is sort of a huge thing in this industry right now. The companies rolling up into others and forming all of these things can happen. They could double their hosting rates or their service fees. If you don't own your website, you are tethered to that company. I liken it to Titanic, kind of. It's like if you're on that ship and anything, you go as that ship goes. You're not going off of it. And it's such an important thing, because if you have that SEO value and you've spent that money, you should own that website. Hands down. I mean, it's not even a question mark. You should be able to take it to another developer or another design house and say, hey, you know what, I don't like working with my vendor anymore. Or you know what, they're going out of business. They decided to, move on to something else. I need to take my website and post it elsewhere and get work done on it. Stuff like that is so huge to own your site. It really is. It's probably the single most important thing I tell people.
Yeah, so that's a great place to start when an agent's looking at possibilities. And what that makes me think of is agents who get a site from their brokerage, which is very common. Brokerages want to offer tech tools and as recruiting techniques, and say, hey, we're going to do this for you. We're going to provide a website for you. Isn't that great? I mean, what should they be concerned about?
There's a couple views on this. One is, if it's a free website from your brokerage, which is typically what I get asked a lot. If it's a website you have out there, feel free to put it on a domain name somewhere. I mean, if it gets you some leads, great. I would never use a free company website to brand myself, because you have to understand, if a site's provided by the brokerage, no matter what, the best interest is going to be for the brokerage. It's going to be for their brand to stand out first and foremost. It keeps, and there's a reason why brokerages do it. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It helps control the presentation of their brand, which they're obviously very protective of. If you're Compass or Douglas Elliman or whoever you are, you want your brand to be, shown in the best light possible. So in their eyes, that sort of keeps control over that to make sure that the brand and the agent looks good. If they have no site at all, at least they have something that in theory should look good and present well. But at the end of the day, the brand that's going to be focused on for sure is going to be the corporate brand. I've never once in the history of ever seen a broker offer website that catered to the branding of an individual agent. It literally does not exist. And it makes sense it wouldn't, because how would you do that and cater to each individual agent's needs? And that's probably the biggest challenge in this industry. Is I've always joked about this for like 20 years, and this is probably the worst industry you could build templates for in websites ever. It just is, because it's not like a medical field or some other places where they're sort of set, brand isn't that important. Information about a doctor is important, right? You want reviews, you want those things. In this industry, that's not the case. Your brand is everything, and you standing out is everything. Imagine if you all work for the same brokerage. Imagine, pick any of these major brokerages that are out there, and you're on a listing presentation at noon, and the person who came in at 11 a.m. before you on the same listing presentation had the same website template, the same listing presentation, the same brand identity, basically piggybacking on their broker brand. How much of a disaster would that utterly be? I mean, you truly would not, in a place where you need to be memorable, it would be the worst possible outcome possible, because you basically it would be sheep. You would just look like one another, and there's no brand differentiation. And in this industry, that is everything, because your brand is you. It is your business. It truly is your business. And we've talked about branding for 20 years. It's just become sort of a big buzzword more and more these last 2-3 years.
Yeah.
But from day one, we always thought of ourselves as a branding agency, because you really are providing, A real estate agent is no different than a Fortune 500 company, is no different than anything else. Their business, that's their everything, right? If you're a broker and agent, that's your livelihood. And that image should be portrayed at that level of professionalism and that level of polish that you would expect out of a Coca-Cola or again, I use brands like Chanel or Tom Ford or whatnot, but it really should. And people shouldn't expect less than that, and they shouldn't settle for less than that.
So, John, you said something earlier I want to go back to, which is the idea of a template. What is a template and why is it a bad thing?
There's a market for everything out there. A template done right, and there are, I see this thing out. There are good companies out there, good companies that produce templates in this space that have been around for even as long as we have, and some of them I have great respect for. I think there's a space for them, especially for new agents starting out. Sometimes it can work, but that if there is a template that you're going to use, you have to be able to customize the hell out of it. Like whatever it is, you've got to be able to put your personal stamp on it and build around it. And it kind of goes to what I said earlier, by owning your website. Mm-hmm. I've also never seen a self-contained system out there that was based off of a proprietary tech system that, and I'll give you a great example of this, that where people could build their brand, seamlessly on. Because say you start out with some self-contained proprietary system that you're working off of, and maybe it works great for you when you have, testimonial section, listing section, the usual stuff you see on a real estate site. Maybe you can work within it. What happens when your business takes off and all of a sudden you need to represent a development? And maybe it's development in Dubai. We had a client who has a development in Dubai that right now is a big thing. What happens when that template system doesn't work anymore? What happens when you need a special section dedicated to that? Or you have a special part of your business that caters to a certain clientele or a certain market that is not what you typically see within a template. I've watched this happen time and again, where you basically have to go to the company and say, hey, I need this done. The answer should never be no, first off. Whoever you work with from a design perspective, they should never just say, oh, you can't do that. Or, we'll put that and look into that, Q2, Q3 next year when we do our next software updates. That's bullshit. Like that should never be an answer. The answer should be yes, whatever it is you need. And it should just be a matter of time and cost at that point to do it. And none of this stuff's rocket science, but it should really be, you've got to realize that when you're within those confines, you are constrained. There's no way around it. And if you build your entire business on it and, over time, you put a lot of marketing, a lot of time into it. And again, you get search engine placement, whatnot, all these things happen. You're tethered to that company. When you need something like that and can't do it, it becomes a real hindrance on your business. And you can't move on a dime with that. Building a website takes some time. To build a great website, it's going to take you a few months at least. You can't, if you have a client who says, I have a brand new development, I'm signing you on for it, I need this on your website, we need this, and this, floor plans, whatnot, this, that, and the other, and a special section that has this integrated video, this, that, and the other, and you can't provide that, it looks horrible on the agent. So
right. So again, this idea of scaling, right? Of being future minded.
Absolutely.
Thinking about where you're going to go with this. So here's what you need today, but you might need something else tomorrow. So same with the local mark, same with the website. That's really interesting.
Everybody's goal should be to grow their business, be it, just in their area or whatnot. But it's like, the idea is you want whoever you choose as your technology partners, plural, whatever you're working with tech-wise, make sure they can grow with you. That's really it. And make sure that they provide, they can provide you the tools you need to succeed at it. And that goes for everything. That literally goes for every aspect of tech. Beauty of tech is there's a lot of options out there and a lot of things to choose from. And, it really is just being educated and kind of picking which tech to use and what's the right for your business.
Right. Right. So we talked about brand awareness, which is obviously a really key part of building a business. But as we're talking about growing and scaling, lead generation is going to be top of mind. Want to grow their pipeline. So how do you focus on branding on your website and your digital presence when you really need to be working on lead generation?
This is it's interesting too. Lead generation, people often think, if I, say I want to buy space at the top of Google, I want to do a PPC or a pay-per-click campaign, bid on certain terms to get to the top, and I'm just going to put my website up there, and by doing that, I'm going to get leads. It doesn't work that way. You will get some, law of averages, but I've always told people, if you're going to do lead generation, if your pure goal is leads, first off, if you're not going to have two sites, you better have a sub-site of yours that doesn't go heavy on your face being on there, your brand necessarily being front and center. You can generate leads through that, but it typically is not going to be the site you ideally have that represents you and your business and your image is not going to be the site that's going to generate you the most leads, if that's what you're going for. If people have the option, if they're going to search for homes, odds are they're going to go to Zillow, if they're going to go to Redfin, they're going to hit up different spots like that. If you're going to place at the top of Google, you need to drop them in on a page that provides listings, results, call to actions. You're spending money for those clicks. So you have to decide right from the beginning, if I'm spending that money, is my goal brand awareness or is my goal leads? Because they're two very different things. If it's brand awareness and you just want your name in lights and you want your brand reinforced at the top of those results, you'd still want to drop them on pages that are relevant to their search, obviously. But you may well be using your site with your face, your team, your logo front and center. On those things, you're typically going to get about 30% of the leads you would get through what I would call an unbranded site that isn't focused that heavy on the agent and the team and the brand, because people intrinsically are looking for properties, unless they're looking up, like Beverly Hills real estate agent, then that's a different story. But if they're looking for Beverly Hills homes, Atlanta homes, whatever that is, they're looking for properties. So if they see an agent there right when they get there, their thought is, if I put my information here, this person's going to be knocking on my door, contacting me. That's not what I'm looking for as a consumer. I'm looking for property information, homes. What can I get on a website I visit that I can't get from another site? What are sort of takeaways there that are different from Zillow or because otherwise they'll be there. So to grab their attention and grab leads, that's your goal. You want the site focused as heavy as possible on the community, as passively as possible, and not with, like I said, your sort of face and your name and lights. The focus is what the consumer wants, which are homes, and what you can give them that isn't, available on Zillow. And with the new pocket listing laws and things like that, that's sort of shifting and stuff. Mm-hmm. But again, I also tell people there's nothing that you can't say, have a form on there that says, learn about listings, be the first to learn about new listings as they hit the market. Those little calls to action and things like that, even though it may be the same as Zillow, when you put that call to action that way, all of a sudden somebody's like, oh, wait a second, even if it's cryptic, am I going to get information here I wouldn't get from Zillow? You know what? I'm going to put my email address here and see what happens. See if there's something of value here that what can it hurt? Versus if it's a branded website, people are there. Even if you had those things right away, they know it's self-serving. They know it's for the agent. They know it's for they know someone's going to contact them right away. It's all psychology. It's all psychology of what you come across when you're searching. I always tell people, if you're going to do lead gen, have two websites. Have one dedicated for lead gen, but do not mix the two. There's companies out there I think do good on lead gen. Boomtown's one that I think does good for even some of our clients. We do lead gen things. I'd like to see our clients diversify what they're doing. I think a big thing in this market, in our space, is everybody is very, I won't say out for themselves, but it's very protective of their, and my logic's much different because I was an agent long ago. And I look as an agent, what I would have wanted is the company, whoever it is, it's my tech company, to steer me in a direction that's best for me. So I always tell people, you should do lead gen with us and things we do, but here are some other companies that do it well. Why not diversify, see what works best for you? If it's us, awesome. If it's somebody else, terrific. And you can get leads with sites that are branded to you. I said Boomtown was an example I used, but again, would I use that as my site for my personal brand on a truly branded scale like the sites we do or some of the other custom stuff I see out there? Absolutely not. There's a place for those. What we do are very different things. Lead gen and branding are two extremely different paths that right. You're talking about.
Well, talk a little bit about that. What does Agent Image do? Why should folks consider Agent Image as a source for their digital presence?
It's again, 20 years into this, what we take pride in is it really is building brands and building identities. And I can't tell how many clients I have that have been with us literally since the beginning, who started out in the early 2000s and have had sites that's probably on their fourth, fifth, some of their sixth iteration easily. I take pride, and I think what we really do is having a product at every price point that because often people look at our work and they think like, oh my God, this stuff must be prohibitively expensive. And it's not, that's the thing. Everything we built was designed to scale. So it's the idea, Mercedes is sort of a commodity, but I use this as an example because the idea is you have the, a C class, you have an A class, whatnot. But as people's careers take off, you now got them introduced to the brand and seeing how beautiful their brand can look. And as they want to go more and more custom, you have the E class, you have the S class, things like that. And it's sort of my analogy for it. But in the end of the day, we're going to make anybody look better than the work we do on design. Nobody touches this in the industry. I mean, you can look at the Real Trends Awards that came out,
Right.
just 2 weeks back. I mean, to get best overall website for the Oppenheim Group, best agent site for James Weekly's site, 6 out of the top 10 best design sites in the U.S. nationwide it's unprecedented, and it's that to me was the greatest compliment, because doing this long, it's one thing for us to know the work we do is good, and for our clients to tell us, but to actually have someone like Real Trends, who is sort of gospel when it comes to the Real Trends 1000, sort of the different data that's out there, for them to acknowledge that was very touching, very honor. Like I said, it's a huge honor to us, because it confirms what I've known for a long time. We build brands, and we
Right.
make people look better than anybody else can, and we take a hell of a lot of pride in it. So, yeah.
Well, that's why we wanted you here today, John, because this is what you guys do. And the fact that you've been doing it for 20 years, is an eternity in digital time. So thank you. That was
In
incredibly
digital times,
helpful.
it is like
Yeah. Well, great.
awesome.
Let's we'll wrap it up. Where can folks go to learn more about Agent Image?
Oh yes, just agentimage.com. That's you'll find a lot of information there. I'm trying to think that's you can find us on social media as well. Follow us on Instagram for sure. But yeah, it's you'll anytime you want to reach out to us, we're there, and we're happy to help anywhere we can. So and like I said, that can be even just for advice, branding advice. Like I said, the more we can help sort of people with their careers and build them. That's what we love doing. So
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
you're welcome. Thank you so much, Lauren. I appreciate it.
You got it.
All right.